Welcome back to Conservative Conversations. I am Reid.
And I'm Frank.
Today we're going to be talking about recent Supreme Court rulings and the latest peace deals. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And if you would like to hear exclusive content, become a paid subscriber through our podcast host, Red Circle.
Alrighty, so to get into the first topic today, I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court and a recent decision that just came out in Trump versus the court-appointed special advocates. And I wanted to make a distinction because I learned a couple of things. You know, I had talked about this in a previous recording. I'm not sure how many back you'd have to go now to find it, but, you know, I was really concerned about some of the potential issues surrounding the 14th Amendment and an executive order that Trump had made concerning the 14th Amendment. And it is part of this case, the Trump versus the CASA, or the court-appointed special advocates. But I think I had missed some of the particular nuances to this case in particular. And when I reviewed, you know, after getting this decision, some of the finer points, I realized sort of what I had missed, you know, as far as those nuances go. And so just to get into it, we just got a 6-3 decision, and it was, you know, the 6 more conservative judges versus the 3 more liberal judges. And they totally quashed this idea that nationwide injunctions can be performed by, you know, district judges or whatever, not district, but, you know, magistrate or whatever. You get what I'm saying, that whoever makes these circuit, I think it's the circuit courts, right? So those can't happen anymore. And they've been a bane to many administrations. You know, this issue has come up. One of the things that has really been paraded around, you know, in recent days, you know, surrounding this case is even Justice Kagan under Biden was recorded saying that, you know, no one person should just be able to stop certain acts, you know, nationwide in their tracks,
Right.
like this. But still, despite the fact that she's on record saying that, she's in the dissent on this one. She sided with, you know, politics over reason, if
Right.
you will. So that's interesting. But, you know, if you remember, one of the things that I had predicted is that we would probably see a 6-3 decision on this matter. Except what I had said at the time was I thought Trump would get slapped down, that this would not be able to stand because of the, you know, what would you say? Because of the 14th Amendment, right? Like, I don't think he should just be able to change the 14th Amendment by executive order. And I still think that's going to stand, but that's going to be decided in October. So I just want to be on record as saying that I still think when we get the decision in October, I still believe it's going to be 6-3, if not more now, that he can't just change, nor should any president be able to just change the Constitution by the stroke of a pen, you know, by issuing an executive order.
Right. Yeah, because that turned out not to be what the question of this particular, you know, case was, that they just made a ruling on.
Right. It's whether or not these court-appointed special advocates, or you might say in common terms, because what we're really talking about is whether or not the circuit courts can issue these injunctions this way.
Right. Which makes sense, because imagine you and I go to the court with some kind of dispute over, you know, something in our apartment, like, you know, rent or whatever.
Sure.
And then the judge says, okay, any kind of dispute amongst roommates has to be halted until we figure out this situation.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total oversimplification, but
Right,
yes, it's a
exactly.
good point. It's fair. It's fair. But did you want to say any more about that or make any other parallels?
Not really, other than I just think it makes sense that one judge, whether it be district level or circuit level, can't hold up, the whole country's, related issues.
Right. Especially when you consider, and, I tried to hit the point, I'll make it again, but it's been the bane of several presidents,
Right.
administrations.
On
And
both sides.
yes, both sides, and even some of the current liberal justices on the Supreme Court have been recorded on video. You can watch them say it themselves, saying that this should not happen this way.
Right.
But also, when you think about the timing, a president only has ideally 4 years, during that term that they're elected or whatever. And if you can just stop the clock on certain issues, for how long? You could wait out the president and what they're trying to do, what they've been elected for.
Right.
And it's one of the things that you'll see. This sort of leads me into my next point, unless you want to say anything else. But, Amy Coney Barrett wrote the major opinion for this matter. And it's one of the things that she says is that the courts, no president is a king and no court is a king either.
Right.
You can't just stop everything. If the people have elected this guy, ideally to do this thing, the courts can't just stop it.
Right.
That's not the way our political system works. So that sort of leads me into the next thing is Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote the dissent for the liberal justices, and Amy Coney Barrett wrote the major opinion for the conservative justices. And it sort of is like night and day, the two pieces or opinions.
Right.
And Ketanji Brown Jackson, if you're somebody who likes to read or reads well, can read between the lines, she's basically just lamenting. The whole thing is just like one of these big, wah, wah, wah. And that's from somebody with a literature degree. I'm telling you, that's my read of it. It's, well, but this is, that's how it reads.
Yeah, kind of like, but I'm not getting in my way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Amy Coney Barrett's is cerebral, thoughtful, well put. I mean, logical, orderly. I could say so many things. It's so well written. It's so well written. But something happened in Amy Coney Barrett's version that I don't think there's exactly precedent for, especially not in modernity. I've never seen it happen this way, where she calls out. Normally they would say, in the dissent or in the dissenting opinion, right? That's how it would be phrased, to speak about the other side.
Right, yeah.
She calls out Ketanji Brown Jackson by name in her dissent repeatedly.
In her majority opinion?
Yes, in the majority opinion. But I'm saying she calls out, I don't know if I misspoke, but she calls out Ketanji Brown Jackson for her dissent, for the fact that she wrote it.
Right.
Instead of just saying, the dissenting side or whatever. She calls out Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Right.
And there's been a lot of hullabaloo about that. A lot of people are saying that it's a personal attack, that it's sort of a cat fight, if you will, on the Supreme Court between these two female justices. And there's been a lot of speculation. Some people have said, the court has always, no matter how they decide, they've always gotten along. Behind closed doors, they've always been buddy. They'll still shake hands and go to dinner together. Well, some people are questioning whether or not that's true anymore, right? Because of this and the fact that ACB called out KBJ by name and all of this. So it really is interesting I think I've never seen it happen before. And, we follow these Supreme Court cases. I'm very interested in this kinds of stuff, and I've never seen it. I'm not saying that it's never happened.
Sure.
But I've never seen it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that is interesting to think about. I mean, because, I would say Amy Coney Barrett and
Yeah, Ketanji.
Yeah, aren't even the two that are the farthest apart.
No.
I think it would actually be Thomas and Brown Jackson who are the farthest apart.
Or Alito.
Right, yeah, one of those two.
Yeah.
Right. But they still seem kind of, I obviously have no idea, but they themselves would seem more open to having dinner together with everybody. But obviously I don't know, despite their differences. But it is interesting to see that, yeah. I certainly haven't heard before of specific judges or justices being named in opinions like that.
Yeah, I can't cite any examples, and this is something that I'm interested in. Now, I'm no expert.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, of course. But I don't know of any examples offhand. So I think, though, that it just shows it's a sort of sign of the times, if you will. Right. Because if you think back to how Ketanji got onto the court and all of the fervor and discussion and everything around her and who appointed her, that asterisk presidency, the way he chose her, not by qualifications per se, but almost by skin color. You remember? This was a big issue at the time. I don't want to be, causing drama now, but it was at the time. There was big talk around this, and but anyway, if you keep that in mind, that he was a questionable president, this was a questionable choice. She got put on the court, but whatever. This has led to some very interesting study that I've seen put out, and links are going to be in the show notes and everything. But somebody did an analysis of who's done the most talking as new members of the Supreme Court. And it's Ketanji. She has done more talking. And it's not over the entire history, because I don't think the analysis goes back that far. But at least since Clarence Thomas, it goes back. They did the research back to Clarence Thomas. I think they were just looking at sitting members.
Okay.
And when he was new, and in whatever time period they studied, whether it was 12 months, 24 months, whatever, I don't know what it was, their first 12 months on the court, let's just say that. You could look at the stuff for yourself. The show notes are there. I don't have it in my notes that I'm looking at, but you could find this if you were interested. But the study shows that, in Clarence Thomas's first, let's just say 12 months on the court, he asked, and I also don't remember this, how they graded it, but either it was 96 questions, or he spoke for 96 minutes, or whatever. But it was a very low number. It was 96. Ketanji Jackson's in the 12,000s or whatever. She just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks compared to the others. She blows everyone else out of the water. And you can look, they have a bar graph. So that was interesting to me, to think, okay, well, that sort of fits too, that she just gets on there and just is has run at the mouth syndrome, and isn't as cerebral and thoughtful and, composed as some of the others. And one of the other interesting things, I think it was a totally different source, but somebody did a compilation video of Ketanji Brown Jackson just saying, well, I don't understand. I don't understand this. I'm trying to understand this. Let me understand. Help me understand this. I want to understand.
Right.
12 minutes long.
I haven't seen that compilation, but in some past clips of oral arguments and stuff that I've heard her do that before.
Yes, I've heard her do it before too, but I guess it's one of those things you don't realize how often you say something until somebody does
puts it
that.
together. Yeah.
I mean, how many seconds does it take you to say, I don't understand? How many seconds was that? I don't understand. Like 3 seconds?
Yeah, it's something like that, 2, 3.
This was a 12-minute video of her just saying, I don't understand. Help me understand. Let me understand. I'm trying to understand.
Right.
12 minutes long. So I think that's very telling too. I mean, who wants to be that admissive of the fact that they don't belong on the court? I don't understand. Whereas everybody else is like, but would you say blah, blah, blah? Like pointed questions.
Right.
But as it relates to such and such, wouldn't you say blah, blah, blah? How would you make the argument about blah, blah, blah? But she's like, help me understand. I don't understand.
Right.
So, anyway, that's my whole piece about that and about the decision about Trump versus the court-appointed special advocates. And I still am going to be hanging on the edge of my chair for the decision in October. I still think I'm going to be right. I might miss the numbers, but I still think I'm going to be right about that. So I just wanted to make a clarification. If anybody's at home is watching, keeping score, I wouldn't exactly say I was wrong about this. I just think I missed some of the nuance to this particular case.
Right. Yep. We'll definitely be looking to see what they say in October. But that wasn't the only positive decision we got out of the Supreme Court recently. There was also I believe it was LW versus Scrametti, which was the Tennessee's case for banning certain transgender procedures for minors, and the Supreme Court upheld it, that they are allowed to do it. And I think, from my understanding, the question was actually about like equal access or something related to that. But in either way, Tennessee basically got the green light to keep the bans on the procedures in place, which is a good thing, particularly towards the minors.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And hopefully other states will soon follow and put in similar restrictions in. Because presumably, unless there's some nuanced differences in the states, individual states' laws, it'll also be approved by the courts. And then also there's another case. I didn't get the chance to write its name down, but it had to do with schools allowing parents to opt out of certain curriculum based on their religious beliefs, and the Supreme Court says that some curriculum parents are allowed to opt their children out of if it conflicts with their religious beliefs. And in this case, I think it was more related to like sex ed and LGBTQ material, stuff like that.
Yeah, because they're teaching it younger and younger, which is like mind-boggling.
Right. Right. So that's definitely some other positive news for conservatives and the Trump administration that we got out of the Supreme Court recently.
Absolutely. And the only thing that I would fit in on that, if you don't mind, is like, I get it. I have some educators in my family. I used to want to teach, and like, if you listen to certain educators out there, and you have to keep in mind, most of them are liberals, they would probably bemoan this decision because they don't like when the parents get too involved and say, I don't want my kid to read this book, or I don't want my kid to watch that movie, or my student needs extra homework. Right. And it's not always, or, different homework, let's say, not extra, but.
Right.
And And I sort of get that because you don't want to have to sit there and do like an ICP plan for like every child and be like, because it just extends the workload for the teacher to have to make
the
all these
exceptions
exceptions for every child and blah, blah, blah. But in this case, it's like, so what? You shouldn't be teaching this crap anyway. I don't think this is really a matter of choice, and that's why I'm happy to see the decision.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there's another one. I didn't get the chance to read too much about it, but I saw that South Carolina is allowed to prevent Planned Parenthood from receiving federal Medicaid or Medicare funds.
Well, good.
In the state.
Should have never happened anyway because of the Hatch Act. Or no, not the Hatch Act. What is it? It's the Hyde Amendment.
Yes, that one.
Wrong H word. Yeah. The Hyde Amendment. They should not, no organization that provides abortions should be receiving federal funds anyway.
Right. Yep. So it's definitely good to see those positive decisions out of the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. It's good to see reason prevail.
Reason will prevail.
Yes.
But that's all I had on the little short cases from the Supreme Court.
Alrighty, well then I guess to move into the next piece of good news is we just saw another peace deal signed in the Oval Office with Rwanda, and I don't even know who they've been at war with, to be honest. I just know the name Rwanda. I maybe should have written down who they've been at war with for so long, but this has been a 30-year ongoing war.
Right.
Okay? And Trump just got both sides together, and they actually signed a peace deal in the Oval Office. It really happened. It's on tape. And the reason I point that out is because there's been some false reporting by liberal outlets. They've gotten slapped like a couple of times in the last couple of days. And this is one where I saw a debate happen on Abby Phillips' show the other day where one of her guests was arguing with Scott Jennings about whether or not this happened. And he's like sitting there saying like, yes, it just happened. It's on tape. It really happened. Both sides were there and signed the deal. And the other party who was making the arguments, I don't know who it was, somebody else, was saying that, well, they're celebrating their victory too early, and this is just a projection. They want both sides to come and sign the deal. No, guys, it's done. It's been done. They signed the peace deal. There's no more war in Rwanda. And so I just think it's interesting, like a really interesting piece, because when I was in school, I don't remember at what grade level or what teacher made us do it, but they made a movie, because this has been going on so long. There's a famous movie called Hotel Rwanda, and it's about that war that's been going on for so long, and it's about how a bunch of people took refuge in this hotel during the war. I'm sure there's a lot of nuance to this that I don't remember. I don't recall. I didn't familiarize myself with this before talking about it, but I had to watch this movie, and it's about how these people had to take refuge in this hotel, and they're trying to like keep everybody in the hotel safe while this war is going on. And it's about how the UN comes in with their robin egg blue hats, and they try to keep the peace, but it obviously didn't happen. The war's been ongoing, but Don Cheadle stars in the movie, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are somewhat familiar with the movie. I'm sure somebody has seen it, familiar with the movie. But I just think it's interesting because when I heard this about the Rwanda peace deal, I thought, holy cow, I had to watch that when I was in school. How many years has that been now? Almost 18 years ago or something, So
yeah.
It's been a long time. And I'm thinking, I didn't even know that was still going on. You don't hear about it.
Right.
So, and to think, well, dang, the UN went in there. They tried to keep the peace. They tried to get involved and stop this. And But I mean, how many times have you heard? I know how many times I've heard it, but the UN's useless.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're even for.
Right. I mean, it's been, I feel like, a common complaint, at least particularly from conservative, that there are countries like at least China and other countries that we would deem not so good that are on the Security Council. And
Yeah, and they're making some of the worst
Right.
human rights abuses.
right, yeah, things
Worst,
like that.
Aggressive. Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Right. But I was gonna say, I mean, you were talking about how some news outlets have been misleading this whole story. I mean, I feel like they've done a good job of not even talking about it because I haven't heard about this at all until you were telling me about it.
Well, there you go. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just something people don't care about anymore. But, to those people who are affected,
Mm-hmm.
and people like me who can remember, studying this in school, not that we really studied it,
Right.
but they made us watch the film. But, and I guess I have a good memory and was interested in it, but I couldn't believe it's still ongoing and that it took Trump to
Right.
finally sign the peace deal. So, I don't know. I just think that's cool. And go ahead. You wanted to say
Oh,
something?
I was gonna say, I almost couldn't remember if Rwanda was still a country or not, but it's Rhodesia that I believe is no longer a country.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. But I know Rwanda's still a country because
Yeah.
they were part of this deal.
Well, of course.
I just don't remember who their adversary is.
Sure.
I don't know that part.
Right. But yeah, that is pretty interesting. I mean, Trump definitely wants to do peace deals. I mean, I'm sure he'll go
Yes.
anywhere he can to get them done.
Absolutely, and it reminds me of the Abraham Accords from his last administration, where those were set, if we had not had a change of administration, those were set to be like some of the most amazing new peace deals that we've ever seen in that region. And I think there was a little bit of a fall through
Right.
because of the change in administration.
Right.
But we were on track to see peace in the Middle East like we've never seen.
Right.
And now with this stuff, and we've also seen the ceasefire in Israel after the recent bombing and everything.
Right.
We're seeing him make these deals. And Marco Rubio, who I also have given shout outs to recently, he was just on record having this really good quip where he's saying, Trump really is the president of peace. And I love that moniker. I hope it makes the history books because we've seen more peace from this one man than I have in all the administrations I've seen in my lifetime.
Right. And 2 weeks ago, half the people thought we were about to go into World War III. Right.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I was nervous about it myself, and I still am. I mean, you never know. When you're dealing with that area of the world and those sorts of people, you know what I mean? Those jihadist types and the people who don't really seem to have common sense. You always are nervous about those types of people. But we've definitely seen a good step forward on that front. So,
yeah, it's definitely been great to see, for sure.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting. Really good stuff. And then, did you want to shift to anything, say anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Because I also saw some other interesting stuff. There was a CNN host who recently had to admit that Trump has been winning, in this sort of context that we're talking about. It's almost getting to the point where they can't deny it. And they've got to start correcting their audience.
Right.
To go back to the Abby Phillips example, now, of course, she's not going to sit there and do it. but it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs to stop. Whoever was arguing with Scott Jennings, whoever was on that panel, I don't know her name. It was a female.
Mm-hmm.
Abby Phillips, as the star of the show, should have stepped in and said, you know what? Scott's right. It's on video.
Right.
They did sign.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this guy, I'm not going to name him. You can find it in the link if you want to. I'm not going to shout out CNN hosts that I don't like. But this guy did. He had to stop and admit. And he goes on this little tirade. He goes on to like a bulleted list and says, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing.
Right.
And he's like, he acknowledges Trump really has been winning. It always reminds me, it's kind of Trump's thing, talking about winning, you're not tired of winning yet. We're never going to be tired of winning,
Right, yeah.
But it always reminds me of Charlie Sheen.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy Charlie Sheen. But anyway, he had to admit this. He's like, Trump really has been winning on these points.
Mm-hmm.
And his detractors are actually losing.
Right.
And I just thought that was amazing. And it kind of coincides with this other piece that I saw. There's this one crazy congressman. He's African American. He walks with a cane. I'm not going to name his name. But he put in, however they do it, he put in these articles of impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing to me is less than 40%
Right.
of the House took any action towards approving these articles. There is no appetite to impeach Trump. You have people like Nancy Pelosi on record saying this would be a fool's errand. Don't do it.
Right.
He'll just make a mockery of you.
Like the last two times.
I mean, and she would know better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think she's out there saying it? I mean, she certainly had a fall from grace.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I just think that's amazing. There's just sort of amazing stuff happening everywhere you look.
Right. Right? You almost can't keep up with it.
You almost can't keep up with it, I know.
Yeah. Just like back in the when he first took office, win after win after win. Right.
What, you mean
back.
this year?
Yeah. Right, right after
Well, it's been going the whole time.
I know.
I just think a lot of it doesn't make the headlines, or,
Sure.
some of it takes a little while to come about.
Right.
You make a step, but you gotta, they say the proof's in the pudding. You gotta make the pudding. You gotta whip it up and let it chill and whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it just seems like we are just on fire, like in a good way, not the way we talked about how the economy was burning or whatever, the country was burning under Biden. No, we are on fire, baby, the way you want it to be.
Right, we loaded up the train and it's rolling down the tracks.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad to be seeing a lot of the successes so far, and it's only the first year, not even the whole way through.
Yeah. And just think, I mean, we got like 3.5 more years. I know. It's so cool. I was thinking about that the other day too. I'm like, we still have 3.5 years.
Yep. By then we may actually get tired of winning.
I don't think so. But I think I still will be amazed. I mean, I think this is going to be a record, like I don't even know how to put it. This is going to be one for the history books, this administration.
A historical presidency.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen him do more than I've seen all the presidents combined in my lifetime.
Right. Definitely.
So that's pretty much all I got, unless we want to kill a little bit more time. I do have like 2 or 3 other little things that I could fit in and talk about, but none of them are very significant. They won't take up very much time.
Well, we can leave the listeners wondering what they are and put them in our exclusive segment.
Oh, yeah, because then they'd have to pay us some money.
Yeah, if they want to hear what they are. So we'll go ahead and get into that. So if you want to hear the last few topics Frank Scott over here. Become a paid subscriber through our podcast host Red Circle. We greatly appreciate your support. Well then, I guess that is all we got for our news today. That's all I got.
That's all I got.
All right, well, listeners, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, it'll be 2 days before the 4th of July. So we hope you have a great 4th of July, Independence Day.
Bum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum. Okay, I don't have to do
Yeah,
that.
that's all. And go out and enjoy the fireworks. Hopefully it won't be thundering or storming. Everybody gets to go out and celebrate. And we hope you go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Contemporary Conservative. You can find this show and our other show, the Wiki Wacky Radio Show, on our YouTube channel and on most major podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. Again, just search Contemporary Conservative. And also, again, to check out our exclusive content, you can become a paid subscriber through our podcast host Red Circle. There will be links in the description.
That's right. And as you're enjoying your 4th of July holiday, we hope you might tell a friend, or a coworker, or a loved one about our program and encourage them to become paid subscribers so that they have access to the same bonus and exclusive content that you have access to. And as always, we thank you for listening.